Welcome to the June 2026 SAN Coordinator Call. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Amanda Owen. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're super happy to have you here. If you aren't familiar with me, I am one of the newer faces on the SAN team. I am the new Assistant Director of Membership and Initiatives. So joined the team back in April. So been here roughly 2 months or so, and time has went by so quickly, and there's been so much good stuff in that time frame. So I am a newbie here, co-leading my first coordinator call here with Catherine. So be gracious with me as I work through this. I'm excited to do it, but there's always butterflies when you're doing something new for the first time. So I will be talking through some of the announcements here as we get started. We wanted to take a second to welcome all of the new coordinators here. That June is their first coordinator call. It's exciting, especially for me, to see new coordinators joining because I'll get to talk with you as time goes on about membership benefits and ways we can enhance your overall engagement in SAN. So if everybody would join me in welcoming the following new coordinators, we have Danielle Ferris from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Emily Stone from University of Alaska Fairbanks, Kate Poole from Edgewood University, Jacqueline Berger from Bucks County Community College, Rue Lee from Bradley University, Mary Humphreys from the University of Toledo, and Mingyang Liu from the University of Toledo. We are all so happy you're here and part of the SAN community. Feel free to drop a hello to those that are joining us in the chat. I am joined here also by Catherine Korinsky and Leo Waite. Cheryl Dowd is traveling this week, so that is just us that are moving along through this discussion. But we are in the process of moving into announcements now. So for the membership renewal season, we are deep in the thick of it. So we just really appreciate all of you who have submitted your annual fees for the new fiscal year, which begins July 1st, 2026. If you have any questions about the renewal process, feel free to contact SAN by email at san-info@wiche.edu. I say it every year, but I can't believe we're already in July. Time just seems to move faster and faster today. During the course of this coordinator call, we'll be spending some time previewing some of the upcoming federal rules that become effective in July. So Catherine Korinsky is going to talk over those pieces. And then we'll walk through some opportunities for SAN members to become more engaged in SAN, where we'll discuss information regarding the Sensational Award process, as well as the advisory group elections, which are coming up very, very quickly. So again, thanks everybody for being here. We'll go ahead and move into the next piece of our agenda, which is a preview of the federal rules. So Catherine, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you if you're ready.
Thanks, Amanda. So, what I'm going to do today is provide a brief overview of several federal regulations that are going to take effect in July, and highlight what institutions might want to be watching as implementation or effectiveness begins. Just for reference, a lot of what I'll be covering is included in the latest policy report that WCET and SAN put together. So, feel free to check along with that. I'm happy to take any questions along the way or at the end. If I'm unable to immediately have an answer, please feel free to send me a follow-up email and I'll look more into your question to make sure that I can give a proper and accurate response. This summer is going to bring significant sets of federal regulatory changes. The regulations arise from several negotiated rulemaking efforts from the past couple years, including program integrity, RISE, AHEAD, and public service loan forgiveness rulemakings. So some of these provisions primarily affect financial aid administration. There are others that have broader implications for academic affairs, compliance, distance education, and more. So I'm going to focus on five key developments that institutions should be aware of. First, there are some important changes related to distance education. Effective July 1, the department's definition of a distance education course will become effective. This was from rulemaking, I think 2 years ago. Time has flown by, but I believe that's when it took place. But the new language will read, in terms of defining a distance education course, as a course in which instruction takes place exclusively as described in the definition of distance education in section 34 CFR 600.2, notwithstanding in-person, non-instructional requirements such as orientation, testing, and academic support services. So this definition of a distance education course will be added to 34 CFR 600.2. The definition clarifies that a course may still be considered distance education even when it includes certain in-person, non-instructional requirements. Also effective on July 1, institutions will begin preparing for new distance education reporting requirement. Institutions will eventually be required to report whether Title IV recipients are enrolled in distance education or correspondence courses through the National Student Loan Data System. The regulation technically takes effect in July, but the implementation date will be July 1 of 2027. So there's some time to look into what institutions will need to do to be preparing for that implementation date. The department stated in these regulations the goal is to improve understanding of student outcomes by instructional modality. During the rulemaking process, many higher education organizations emphasize that any analysis of student success must consider the broader characteristics of student populations. The department acknowledged those concerns and indicated that future analysis would consider multiple demographic and contextual factors. Moving on, the second area to watch is public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF. There are regulations that will take effect July 1 that revise aspects of the PSLF program, particularly around the definition of a qualifying employer. The rule focuses on organizations that may be excluded if they are determined to engage in activities considered to have a substantial illegal purpose. So while this change, primarily affects borrowers seeking loan forgiveness, institutions should remain aware of developments and continue monitoring department guidance as implementation occurs. Third, institutions should pay close attention to the RISE rulemaking package and new loan limits related to graduate and professional students. The regulations establish a revised definition of professional student that directly affects annual and aggregate federal loan limits. The final rule maintains designated professional program areas, including medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, veterinary medicine, law, theology, and clinical psychology, along with a few others. This distinction matters because students enrolled in designated professional programs may borrow up to 50% annually with an 200,000 aggregate limit, but other graduate students remain subject to lower annual and aggregate limits. So if institutions haven't already, it'd be important to review the academic program inventory, understand which programs fall within the professional program or professional student definition, and ensure that financial aid, enrollment, and student advising teams understand the implications for affected students. The fourth development is Workforce Pell, effective July 20th, 2026, with an option for early implementation on July 1. The department will begin implementing regulations that establish the new Workforce Pell Grant program. Workforce Pell expands Pell Grant eligibility to certain short-term workforce-focused programs that are between 8 and 15 weeks in length and meet a variety of federal and state approval requirements. In general, to qualify, programs must lead to recognized workforce credentials, align with high skill, high wage, or in-demand occupations, receive both federal and state approval, and satisfy ongoing performance metrics. Programs must maintain at least a 70% completion rate and a 70% employment rate. They also must meet a value-added earnings requirement, demonstrating that graduates achieve meaningful economic outcomes. And one of the most important aspects of Workforce Pell is the central role that states will play. So governors and state workforce boards will help determine which occupations and programs qualify, making state engagement critical for institutions that are interested in participating. So institutions that may want to participate should begin identifying potential workforce Pell programs, evaluating data collection capabilities, engaging with state agencies, and determining whether participation in the program would align with institutional goals. The fifth major development involves accountability measures that may affect all institutions and all programs. So the department is expected to finalize accountability regulations, implementing the new earnings premium framework directed by federal statute. So under that framework, every program regardless of sector or modality, would be evaluated using a single earnings premium accountability test. Undergraduate programs will have their earnings compared to individuals with a high school diploma. Graduate programs will have earnings compared to bachelor degree holders in related fields. Programs that failed the earnings benchmark for 2 out of 3 years could lose their direct loan eligibility. Importantly, for the digital learning community, distance education programs will be evaluated under the same accountability framework as on-campus programs. So institutions will want to begin reviewing outcome data, assessing their reporting capabilities, and considering how to mitigate risk through effective instructional design, online student support, and other continuous improvement strategies. The first reporting deadline is under this framework is expected to occur on October 1st, 2026, with institutions reporting program level and student level data. So as we conclude, there are three kind of overarching themes institutions should keep in mind. First, as we've seen with all 5 of these updates, data collection and reporting expectations will continue to expand, whether discussing distance education reporting, workforce Pell, or accountability metrics. Institutions will need increasingly sophisticated data systems and cross-campus collaboration to be able to manage these requirements. Second, many of these regulations extend beyond financial aid offices, compliance, academic affairs, institutional resources, research, accreditation, and technology teams will all have an important role to play. And third, implementation planning should begin now. Even when there's guidance that continues to evolve, institutions can take some proactive steps by building institutional awareness, reviewing affected programs, and evaluating reporting capabilities, as well as establishing cross-functional teams to coordinate their institutional implementation efforts. So as I mentioned, I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any. If I can't answer them now, I'd be happy to look into it more. I know it's also a lot of information as well, so if you need some time to kind of let all this information simmer or refer back to the policy report for more information, you'd always be welcome to reach out to a member of the SAN team at a later time, and we'll help to the best extent that we can lead you to the right answer.
Catherine, could you put the policy report link in the chat? Or
I will see if it is linkable. It's in Mix under SAN news and announcements.
okay.
So it should be there. It was posted on June 15th, I believe.
Okay.
But I could forward it to you as well, if you're not able to find it. You should be in that community, so I
Okay.
can make sure that you get that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yes, I see another question about the link. Like I said, I believe it should be in Mix, but if you do not see that in your inbox from June 15th, please reach out to me and I will make sure that you get a copy of that. And I'm not seeing any questions, Amanda.
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah.
There's so many pieces of the puzzle going on right now, and so I know institutions are, struggling to wade through all of those developments as they go live at the same time. So, but it
One other
actually
thing,
is. Oh, sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say one other thing to plug. I'm sure you'll mention this in the announcements at the end as well. But WCET and SAN will be hosting a policy kind of update webinar in July, where I'm sure Cheryl and Van will have any up-to-date information or updated information that we've received to that point to share. I will find that and put the registration in the chat. It's also in the coordinator call agenda as well. But just referencing, we'll be continuing to cover and keep things updated as the summer goes along.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. So next we'll move into a conversation about member engagement opportunities for you. And as we are thinking about these new rules coming out, as you begin exploring new processes and ways to do things in the future, it's something to keep in mind for potential submissions for future sensational awards. And so today we have Miranda Hines here with the University of Kentucky to talk about her experiences as a multi-time sensational award winner. So UK has been the recipient of a sensational award in 2020, 2024, and 2025, and they are just doing really incredible work. So we'll go ahead and welcome Miranda to the call. And what we're going to do is just talk through a series of questions to help you walk through what the sensational award process maybe looks like from the member side of things as you explore if it's time for you to maybe submit your own project this year for our new awards submission period. So, Miranda, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
You're very welcome.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So, why did you decide to apply for the Sensational Awards? And like, what motivated you to submit one or a nomination in the first place?
Our team has had different reasons for different projects, but a common driver, I think, for each application has always been that it might help others who are doing similar work. You know, we always stop and go, would other people find this information helpful? Is it valuable? But I think one of the other reasons that we often pursued the recognition was to also get that recognition for our campus partners who we maybe worked with, and also for our team to emphasize to others that the work is important and to encourage those future partnerships as needed. We felt like if we could get them some recognition, then it might encourage them to work with us in the future as well.
Absolutely. Getting to share that process with others across campus is always really vital to help that buy-in, I think, as time goes on. So as those may be considering applying this year, what was the self-nomination process look like for you? And was it more manageable than you expected?
For sure. I will say we were pretty intimidated the first time we applied because we were, not really sure what to expect. But once we got in and we really read the criteria, the process is not bad at all. I think the hardest part for us was sometimes convincing ourselves that our project was worthy of a nomination, because we sometimes felt like, oh, it's just this small little simple thing, or it's just something we did to help with our everyday workflow. So I think once we got past that, the next challenge was to determine how to best convey the information about the project in a way that made sense to others. But again, I think the categories and the instruction that's provided on the SAN website are very clear, but they also leave a lot of room to explain the nomination in a way that can fit your project. So our approach has really just always been to ensure that the nomination touches on the nomination requirements, presenting those solutions in a way that might be helpful to others, and then just explaining the problem we were addressing, the solution we used, and the approach that we used to get there.
Looking back, did preparing that nomination help your institution in any way? Like when you were able to take a step back and take a look at the work, did it give you a better opportunity to document your work, reflect on it as a team? Like, you already mentioned this, like sharing it with others across campus, but more so sharing it from like a leadership perspective.
It did. It prompted us to think about how to clearly explain the challenge that we were addressing, how that work occurred, and the problem that it solved. And that explanation was often helpful for documenting the work or explaining the project to leadership and others at the university that helped them understand what our work was. And, I mentioned our campus partners earlier. It was also really helpful in creating those relationships and networks with those people, as well as with other institutions and colleagues from other schools as they reached out to learn more about the projects that they were reading about. So that was really nice to kind of get to know some different people.
And I think I shared this with you in a prior meeting, but I was at a former institution that wasn't too far away from UK, and I leaned on your guys' website a lot, and some of that information was shared, through the sensational award process that I was able to find. So I think it really helps to create those cross-institution partnerships, but then also even across state lines, right? When I have, can look at your information and see what you all are doing to help me understand the scope. So when you received the award, what was that like? What was that process like? How was it received by your colleagues and your leadership team?
It was encouraging to have the work recognized and to know that it was something that was helpful to other people. I'm not sure that everyone always understands what the compliance team does or the significance of the project that's being recognized. But the colleagues and partners and our leadership, they really seem to appreciate and value that national recognition. And the recognition gives some weight to the workflows and the policies that others, that don't understand that might question, like, what are they doing and why is this important? So I think it does help give that work some weight.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest parts about working in the compliance field is that unless you're in it day in and day out, you don't really understand the complexities of the work that we're dealing with. I always found it, super difficult to explain why things we were doing were so important. Because then, yeah, unless you're in there in the weeds in it, it's easy just like, oh, state authorization or professional licensure disclosures, easy peasy, but it's really not. And so obviously this process is designed to give you all a pat on the back for the work that you're doing because it is so fundamental to the institution. Um, to kind of wrap up here, what would you just say to someone who's unsure whether or not they should submit their project for an award?
I would encourage you to take the leap. You never know when even the smallest or the most simple process might help someone else. And even if it doesn't, it will help you clarify and document your process to assist with internal questions and even training. It's been super helpful. We've developed everything from written descriptions of what happened to flowcharts to all kinds of things that have really helped not only our internal team but others. So I would say definitely take the leap. I know you're all doing good work out there, so go ahead and put it out there to be recognized.
Yeah, it's so true. My institution was a prior winner of the Sensational Award, and I remember when we were asked to submit something by leadership, it was one of those things that like, well, this is just super simple. It's a dashboard. Like to me, it just made my job easier. Like, is that really award worthy? And it was because it was an innovation within our own work that we were doing. So I think taking a step back and realizing even the smallest project or coordination effort that you're doing with this work is worth the applause. So throw your hat in the ring, right, and see where it takes you, because you might end up, three-time winners like y'all are over there.
Right, you never know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Miranda. We really appreciate you talking through your experience. Catherine's actually going to walk us through the award nomination process for this year, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Miranda, for sharing your experience as a Sensational Award recipient. I put this in the chat, but UK, along with so many SAN members, are just highly collaborative and generous in sharing. So we just really appreciate your all's time today and sharing a little bit more information. So, as you've just heard, the Sensational Awards are really about recognizing the incredible work happening across our community. Every year, SAN members develop creative and practical solutions to some of their most challenging state authorization, professional licensure, and compliance issues. The Sensational Awards provide an opportunity to highlight those successes and share them with colleagues across the country. So I've put in the chat the call for nominations for the 2026 Sensational Awards. That is now open. The Sensational Awards, as we said, recognize outstanding efforts in developing a comprehensive solution for an institution's compliance challenges specific to their institution. I think that's really key as well. There is no project too small. If your institution has developed a process, tool, policy, communication strategy, workflow, or other initiative that has improved how you manage state authorization responsibilities, we encourage you to share the work with the community because it really is very likely to help encourage others as well. The goal is not only to just recognize your excellent work, but to showcase practices that others can adapt and learn from. As we've talked about, the nomination process itself can often be valuable. It can give institutions an opportunity to document accomplishments, demonstrate the impact of compliance efforts, and then communicate the value of this work to leadership and colleagues across campus. This year, awards will be presented in three categories. Licensure programs, so that's things like managing state approvals, disclosures, and notifications. Location is a category, so identifying student location, whether in distance education enrollment, experiential learning placements, and other information that can be used for reporting for compliance purposes. And then kind of our all-encompassing category of compliance innovations, where you could submit institutional policies, tools, teams, workflows, or other innovative compliance management strategies. If you're unsure whether your project fits one of these categories, I encourage you to take a look at the category descriptions for more details on the Sensational Awards page. They can provide more detailed guidance about what the committee is looking for and help you determine the best fit for your submission. For those considering a nomination, we've tried to make that process as transparent and straightforward as possible. So all nominations are submitted through Cvent, which is an online platform we're using to collect applications this year. If you haven't used the system before, you will need to create a login before beginning your submission. There's instructions for how to use the Cvent tool on the Sensational Award page on the SAN website. Also on that webpage, you'll also find several resources designed to help applicants prepare a strong submission, including detailed nomination instructions, some category-specific guidance, the evaluation rubric that's used by the review committee, and sample submissions. The nomination deadline this year is July 24th, so there's still plenty of time to prepare a thoughtful submission. Once nominations are submitted, they're reviewed by our Sensational Awards Review Committee, and I just want to take a moment to extend a sincere thank you to our review committee members for their time and expertise that they contribute to the process. Reviewing the nominations is no small task, and their commitment helps ensure the awards continue to recognize innovative and impactful work across the community. The committee always carefully evaluates each submission using the published rubric, and they engage in really thoughtful discussion before selecting award recipients. We really appreciate their time. Award recipients will be notified in late August, and we recognize through SAN and WCT communications, featured on the SAN website and in WCT Frontiers, and invited to share their work with the broader community through presentations and discussions such as SAN's Open Forum, which usually takes place in the winter. As we wrap up, I'd encourage you to think about the work happening at your institution. Like I said, if you've developed a solution that's helped you address a challenge, supported students, strengthened operations, there's a good chance others could benefit from it as well. We hope you'll consider submitting a nomination, and we look forward to seeing the innovative work that our members are doing across the country. If there's any specific questions about the process, I'd be happy to take those. And I'm not seeing any, but you can always email saninfo@wiche.edu or one of us directly if you do think of any questions or need any help with the submission, anything along those lines.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And thanks again, Miranda, for taking the time to talk about that process with us. It's very helpful. Next, we're going to move into the second portion of our agenda, which is another opportunity to have a conversation about engagement opportunities within SAN. And so the SAN advisory group elections are coming up here soon. And so we have Ryan Faulkner here from the College of Eastern Idaho, who's completing his 2-year term on the advisory group this year. So he is going to be term limited and have to sit out now. He cannot run again. So he's hoping to be able to share with you all why you should be so excited about, running for a spot here. So Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. Okay. So same thing as with Miranda, we'll run through a set of questions here. And if anybody has anything to share, feel free to let us know. But to get started, what initially motivated you to run for the advisory group? What were you looking to gain from that experience?
Let's just say I joined WCT about 7 years, almost going on 8 years ago, and there was a wonderful person that worked for the WCT group that wanted to pull me into participating. So I'm going to blame her. She's retired since then, but she really expressed that they wanted to hear from a smaller community college, that it wasn't always about the big schools. And so anytime I've had a chance to participate, I've really felt like doing that. So, and it helps in a couple of ways. One, I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time, and being around really smart people all the time really helps. And kind of looking at, I was kind of looking through the group of people that are in here, and I've met some folks that from various areas of the country at events, but being a part of the actual group really does help. So I really wanted to kind of learn more. I wanted to be able to bring that small school vibe into any conversation, because we really are different. We're all trying to serve the same ends. We're still trying to work with students in the same way, but having the ability to share the little weird things that happen with some of us, or even say, hey, we don't have all the stuff that the big schools have. So it really helps to have a seat at the table in that way. Also, it gives me an opportunity to provide some service. Had it not been for WCT and SAN, I really don't think my online program would be as far as it is to that level. And it allows us opportunities to kind of move forward. It allows an opportunity for those of us that may not have felt like maybe we're, able to express even in our own states or in our own groups and things like that. It really does give us an opportunity to serve and to learn a little bit more. So.
Great. Thank you. I think you make such a great point regarding having a seat at the table because the work at each institution is very different, right? I come from a smaller 2-year community college where most of our programs are in the state. So when we talk about going across state lines, the impact isn't felt as much as an institution who maybe is solely online, right? But I have different experiences through that work, and I think bringing each of those perspectives to the table really helps to make SAN a better organization. So I appreciate those thoughts that you shared. Can you talk a little bit about what serving on the advisory group actually looks like throughout the year and what members can expect?
You're going to meet regularly as a full group. So the advisory group will meet. I think it's quarterly. And Catherine, if I'm wrong, it's usually quarterly on that. Where the real work comes in, and what makes it a little bit more meaningful is that we'll at the beginning of the year we'll sit down as a group and we'll all come up with those things that we want to work on over the next year, things that mean something to all of us. And then we'll pick a few groups and we'll situate ourselves in the special interest teams, and it allows us an ability to use our expertise to learn more, to share information, but share it back to the whole. So it's not just we're sitting in the advisory group and taking it all in and bringing it back to our institutions. It's trying to find those areas of need that we can then help the SAN group in developing. They do a lot of work, and being on these committees and seeing just how much, Catherine and Cheryl have done, and the stuff they've done for me over the last few years has been great. But it's a lot of work, and it's just a small team. And Amanda, you're new to this team, so you're going to probably find out there's a lot of work to go there. It's not scary, it's great, but it's just a lot. And so to be able to, provide our expertise and skill sets in a way that could help the greater good, it's great. And like I said, had it not been for all these things, I would be in trouble right now. There's no way I would know all these things if I wasn't staying up with all the messaging coming out and things like, Catherine talking about all the federal law stuff. It had moved so quickly over the last 4 or 5 years, and there's no way I could have kept up. So kind of forcing myself into that. But also we have an opportunity to work with like the Sensational Award. We get to, some of us can be asked to add into that and check those nominations, and you get to learn things through all of that. So, there's a few things, but it's not horrible. I do wear a lot of hats. This is an important one, and I would say it's definitely well worth having, no matter how busy you are in your daily job. It's great to have this ability to connect.
So you feel like the time investment is manageable based upon your other duties.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about being around other folks is that sometimes somebody will pick up a heavy lift at this point in time, because they're an expert in that area. But there's a lot of collaboration and teamwork, and it's like I said, I feel like my hats keep increasing, and there's going to be more. I found out yesterday even more hats coming on. But this to me has always been that important piece because I do wear so many hats. Being so close to everything that's going on really helps me stay up to date. It really helps me because I would have to force myself anyways to go learn some of the stuff. So having the ability of regular meetings or that little bit of a checkup's great. But yeah.
Great, great. What has it been like bringing your institution's perspective and experience into the advisory group discussions?
Weird. We're kind of a weird school. So we are small. So when I go to, I'm usually the smallest person at most, small school at a lot of the meetings I go to. We don't have the state licensure. We don't have the professional licensure in a lot of ways that the bigger schools do, but we do have weird things that come up. So I think Cheryl and Catherine every now and then will kind of reach out to us and go, "Hey, there's this weird thing that happened to you back in the day. Could we talk about it a little bit?" I also have the ability, being a small school, where I'm a little bit more connected in certain areas. So like, like around campus, we have a little bit of a closer knit. So financial aid is one of those things that every now and then we can have those discussions on, and I can bring that back. And like I said, it does come down to that small school perspective and just kind of reminding people that we don't have a lot of the resources. So, and I know everybody on this call wears a lot of hats, and if you're in the compliance area, That's really difficult to begin with. And if you're doing compliance plus another job, I get that. But having the ability to present back and say, well, maybe the big schools have this, but we don't, here's our perspective on that. And here's what we have to do to kind of do that. And it makes it maybe twice as hard or something like that. So maybe we're smaller, but we still have to, comply and things like that. So I think we've had a unique experience. And for some reason, my school tends to break everything. So if we can break something, we can then take that to our vendors or whatever. But we tend to just have a little odd programs, and being on the border and some of the program stuff the way we are. Yeah, sometimes we get to ask some really unique questions and challenge Catherine and Cheryl a little bit, but we can then share that later on.
Yeah, I think those unique questions and oddities always take more time than like the simple answered questions, right? The ones that you see all the time. So being able to deal with those as they come up is really vital, especially if you're in a smaller institution that maybe has those one-off situations more frequently than not. So you already talked about this a little bit, but how does the advisory group help keep you connected to like your member needs and experiences, but also from like the membership? How does the advisor group take a look at, what do the institutions in SAN need to be supported through this work?
I mean, I think that's really like the whole point of the SAN advisory group is to get people, from multiple areas. There's different representations and all that, and just having those conversations. And like I said, I think the key of it is that, they're not coming to us and saying, we want you to go and investigate this. We don't want this. It really is, we come together as a group and we try to figure out what we think the next year is going to be, or what we've just gone through, and maybe areas that we're lacking in certain information. So from my perspective, just having the ability to sit with very intelligent people and think about things at a higher plane than I can on my own campus, for one. And yeah, we can get that when we go to the conferences and things like that. But unless you're, making those connections and calling people up on a regular basis, it's kind of hard to pull that together. And like I said, it's a time set together, set aside where I know I can sit down and have those conversations. And in my opinion, I'm learning more every time I sit at one of those meetings than not. So it really helps us kind of, I guess, connect in a better way than maybe we could have.
Great. So you've served 2 terms on the advisory group. What keeps you active and engaged in this work, other than it being your job?
I would say number one is the connections with other folks and having the ability to connect, in a way that I just can't, like I said, in the previous answer. I also have some folks that I've met along the way that, it's nice because they'll kind of push you to join up a little bit. They'll kind of push you because they want you on the team, and that's just it. Is I think the last time I ran, I had a couple of people that were like, "Hey, go ahead and do it again because we're going to be on, things of that nature." So for me, it's really the connections piece. And like I said, had I not had connections with multiple people through WCT and even through my state, the other schools, I really couldn't say that we would, I'd be sitting here right now, have this conversation. I really do think those connections are the strongest bit. So.
Yeah, collaboration and connection is so key. I mean, even when I was new to the compliance world back right after the pandemic, Ricky LaFosse was like our small group coordinator for one of the SAN uh, trainings that I participated in. And I still I always knew I had him as an outlet. I don't know if he even remembers that or like remembers me from back then a few years ago, but it's again, those connection pieces that who you can reach out to and talk to when you're needing help on certain things, and to build those relationships more.
And I just want to add a little piece to that. Like, I have a feeling that even though my term will be up, I will still be asked to do a few things, and I would be grateful for that. So I know there's a couple of people on the call that'll be like, "Hey, yeah, let's pull him on that." That's really the cool piece, is that you really do get that connection. So it's not something to fear. It's something to be like, "Hey, this is great. At least I can help out where I can. The service comes back in." But I do believe there'll be a few people that'll be like, "Okay, let's on some of these groups, we'll pull out some people that aren't on the advisory group that might want to participate." So there's always those abilities to connect. So.
Absolutely, 100%. Looking back, what's been the most valuable part of your experience on the advisory group?
I would say just having that ability to share our little college story, to be honest, like I said, and some of the weird things that happen, like being so close to Wyoming and having programs that don't do distance, but there's all those different rules, with our nursing programs and things like that. I would also then say that being able to connect more with the SAN team and realize just how smart they really are and just how they can save our bacon. Having that ability to see it firsthand, like we see it in the meetings, we see it in some of these meetings with Catherine, but there's something special about having that connection and be able to just go ask them what you would think would be a really stupid question, and realize that, a lot of people are struggling with this. And so I think there's this fear of asking certain questions, and this is one area where it's so open and everybody's so helpful. I've never seen anything like this. I did my dissertation on transformational leadership with basically distance ed folks, and I've never seen the amount of sharing. In higher education, my whole entire career up to that point, there was always this battle about sports teams or whatever, or our nursing program's better than yours. This is one area I've never seen that. I've never seen people say, forget you, we're not going to help you there. Everybody's so willing and welcome. And, this group really epitomizes that. So having that first row seat, I guess, for a couple terms has been really, really great.
That collective understanding of like, I help you, you help me is really transformational. And I agree. I don't really see it anywhere else beyond SAN, really. So, if somebody's on the fence about running, what would you want them to know?
Do it. I mean, like I said, I take this back to a specific person at WCT that just said, "Hey, do it." And I was going, "Who's going to vote for me? Why would anybody want me to do any of this kind of stuff?" It's definitely well worth it. And I would say, especially if you're a smaller school or if you're at kind of an underrepresented school, do it. It gives you that ability to, one, gain a little bit more confidence. It really does. And it allows you to have that seat at the table, like I said, but it allows you to share your expertise, not only from your school, but then you get to bring that back. And I mean, this is kind of a stupid reason, but at my school, we're hurting for money. We have been since we opened our doors to be a community college. Having the ability of being on a committee has helped me be able to continue to go to the conferences and things like that. It allowed me to go back to my leadership and say, I serve on a national committee with some really wonderful people, and I need to be there in person. I need to go and participate. I need to go be a part of that. So that's not the reason, but those are the things that kind of help a little bit. It really does help, when you're trying to do things at your own campus and people are like, well, we don't, what do you have to bring to offer, things like that. But when you can connect with the national level stuff and you can be a part of it, it brings that little bit of clout and maybe helps open some doors. So in my area, it opened up a lot. But honestly, it's just for me, it was just taking myself out of my comfort zone and then trying to figure out how to connect with really smart people.
I love that. And I think you're so true. Like just do it. Like throw your hat in the ring if you feel like it's something you're interested in. Regardless of your perspective background, new coordinators, it's a fantastic opportunity to throw your name in there to see if you can get more involved and start creating those connections with others. For those that have been around the table for a long time and have those broader experiences to share, you bring invaluable input as well. So I think any stage that these folks are who are considering running, really all each bring something unique and individual to the table. And we are so thankful for your time and service to the advisory group over the last 2 years, Ryan. And please know that you can't get off the hook that easy. Like you mentioned, still being around and helping with things. I think
Wouldn't want to be. Wouldn't want to be. And there's one last comment. Like, and I've talked to a couple of people that have been fairly new into WCT and into SAN and all that. It offers you a leadership opportunity that you may not get in your own institution, and don't underestimate that. It really is. It really is a great opportunity for somebody who's kind of new into this. And yeah, it might be a little scary at first, but I tell you what, I've not been bitten yet, and everybody's been so helpful, and it really has improved my program. It really has allowed me to, I think, do some things that I would not have known to do had I just been kind of floating around. So
I think we're all learning together all the time, and I think that that is really the crust of what SAN is. And so appreciate those perspectives. So thanks, Ryan.
thank you.
Catherine, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you if you want to talk through what that process looks like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Ryan, for sharing your experiences and perspectives as a member of the advisory group. And thank you for serving 2 terms on the advisory group. We've loved having you and hearing your insights over the last 2 years. And like Amanda said, I'm sure we will continue to be reaching out, asking you to participate and volunteer. And we just really appreciate your willingness to just say yes and jump on and help out. Very appreciative for that. And as you've heard from Ryan, the advisory group plays an important role in helping shape SAN's work. Throughout the year, we look to the advisory group for insight on emerging compliance issues, professional development needs, community engagement efforts, annual planning priorities, special interest team activities, and other topics that affect our members. The advisory group members' perspectives help ensure that our resources, programming, and initiatives remain aligned with the realities that institutions are facing every day. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of our current advisory group members for their service and commitment. Ryan, Amber Dees, Erica Swain, Will Miller, Blake Halliday, Jennifer Hurwitz, Cynthia Pascal, and Crystal LeBrun. These individuals volunteer their time in addition to their regular responsibilities, and their thoughtful feedback plays an important role in helping us serve the SAN community. For anyone who ever considered being more involved with SAN, serving on the advisory group is a good opportunity to do so. The advisory group is intentionally structured to include representations from different types of institutions and organizations, which we believe helps ensure that a variety of perspectives are represented when we discuss the challenges and opportunities that face our membership. This year, we have 5 open seats available. There are categories that are open for self-nomination. We have 1 representative to represent public four-year institutions with a student FTE less than 10,000, 2 representatives from 2-year institutions, 1 representative from an association or coordinator of a group membership, and one representative from an independent institution with more than 2,500 student FTE. Any staff member from a SAN member institution or organization is eligible to self-nominate. We welcome participation from both longtime SAN members and individuals who may be newer to the community. If you're interested in participation, the nomination process is intentionally straightforward. Self-nominations will open on July 13th and remain open through July 30th. We're really intentional about making sure the process isn't burdensome. We don't have a lengthy application. We don't need extensive supporting materials. We're just looking for individuals who are interested in contributing their perspective. So what we have will be a self-nomination form where candidates will complete a brief electronic form that asks for basic information about their role, why they're interested in serving on the advisory group, the perspective they would bring, and what priorities they believe are most important for SAN moving forward. After the nomination period, we'll have voting that takes place the first week of August. Prior to voting, all the candidate responses will be compiled and shared with the SAN community so members can learn more about each candidate and their interest. Voting will be conducted electronically. You'll receive that information and instructions through Mix. In terms of commitment, as Ryan mentioned, the advisory group typically meets virtually on a quarterly basis. If we all know that we will be at the same in-person event, we do try to coordinate being able to see each other, but we want the time commitment to be manageable. If there's anyone that is interested in considering a nomination, we encourage you to look at the advisory group information and the procedures that's available on the SAN website. If you have any questions about the advisory group, the nomination process, eligibility, or time commitment, please don't hesitate to reach out. We look forward to opening nominations and seeing new faces interested in participating in the advisory group. Thank you again to Ryan for sharing your thoughts today and to all of our current advisory group members for the important work they do on behalf of the SAN community. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. I will put a link in the chat just so everyone can look at the SAN About Us page, where if you scroll down, you'll see a little bit of information on the advisory group, like its purpose, when it was established, the current members, and we have a little blurb about the categories that will be open for nomination this year. But if there are no questions, I don't have anything else, I don't believe.
Okay, great. Thanks, Catherine. So just to wrap up, a few last minute announcements. So for Sensational Awards, the call for nominations is now open. That nomination period is June 22nd to July 24th. For the SAN Advisory Group elections, the nomination period will be from July 13th until July 30th, with elections happening in August. And then finally, please don't forget about our upcoming webinar on July 15th with WCET and SAN on understanding recent federal Department of Education policy and practice updates. That'll be July 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And finally, just don't forget that 3rd edition of the SAN Blue Book State Authorization of Colleges and Universities is now out and published on Amazon. So if you haven't had the opportunity to take a look at that, that is now available. Wanted to extend our thanks again to Miranda and Ryan for talking with us today. If anybody has any questions, feel free to let us know. But otherwise, thanks for chatting with us today and involving yourself in this conversation with us. And please consider getting involved in these opportunities to be a part of the SAN community. In a super impactful way, not only on your end, but from SAN's end. So thank you all so much.